everyone, Kathy Mira here from Erwin. I'm pleased to introduce this session, Erwin DM Power User Tips and Tricks, which is DM04. Our speaker today is Vani Mishra, a longtime Erwin representative. Great to see you. I know you have a lot to cover, so I'm going to turn this session immediately over to you to begin.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for joining my session. Before I jump into details on the webinar and the topic, I would like to introduce myself. I represent product management and how that is important to my folks, my customers, because if you have any ideas about the product, you want any enhancement requests, any fixes, or you would just want to reach out to us about how the development is working, what is Erwin's vision is about future of the product, I should be your voice. Let's move on to the next slide. My tip in regards to the productivity, how you can increase your productivity while working with data modeling tool, Erwin. So I'm going to start with all kind of features that as an end user, I felt it's useful to implement while doing the data modeling. And topics are, I'm going to cover active model template, DM domains, data modeling uses defined properties and validation rules, bulk editor, API solutions, macros, DM schedule, that's a new one, but one of the most popular recent features that we added on. Some ETL or documentation if it's a data warehousing project. How you can build your source target mapping document, MITI bridges, how that helped me in my previous job. I will share that my personal experience with you. Of course, how you can utilize MART, DMDI integration, which came in R2. And at the end, the most important thing I'm going to discuss is DM roadmap. So without any further ado, let's move on. A lot to cover. We can cover each and every topic, but I would like to suggest all my DM users about the mindset that you should have on when you are working with Erwin DM suite. It should be model driven, whether it's a top-down approach or bottom-up approach, doesn't matter. What you're trying to do is you are trying to design and build your database structure. So Erwin DM is helping you. I have personally seen a lot of customers, they have workgroup, but they are not using it. Workgroup is nothing but it's just a different type of license where which allows my customers to store all their models, 100 models, 200 models, 1,000 models in one single repository, one single source for all the metadata they have. Then what they can do, it's basically it creates a collaborative environment. People can check in, check out their models. It acts as a central repository. You can do the versioning. You can look and go back and see the changes you have made with your different milestones, at the different stages. You can manage your projects. You can control the security of data models, which models should be seen by which user or which team. All that can be controlled as a workgroup solution. So that's something, if you have the product, if you have the license, but it's not being utilized, you should ask your team members to start looking into it. But the model-driven approach is basically you are doing the design and build, you're managing and collaborating with your different members. And the third step comes in, you have the metadata created. I would like to share and communicate about that data model, and web portal comes in the picture. And a lot of customers have been using web portal for the last 7-8 years. It's like a basic portal where a non-data architect or a business user or non-Erwin DM user can look into metadata definitions. Also, they can see the diagrams as well. The right side is governance. That is the major step on the project when your data architect team is done with metadata design part, right? You have built your logical physical models, you have built your warehouse model, Now it's time to share that metadata and build a governance around it. How would you do that? So DI, we have in Erwin family, we have DI, Data Intelligence Suite, which basically allows users to share the metadata from DM and many other sources as well in one single repository. You can do your business gloss, you can build your business glossary, you can run your data governance, you can create your terms, business terms, you can allow the data stewards to look into it, you can create their different roles, permissions, everything can be done on governance on DI Suite. It's a lot more to that. You can do the mind mapping, you can run the data lineage. It's a very powerful tool. So if you are talking to DM, there is a new feature came in which allows customers via Mart or Workgroup, you can push your metadata into DI and then run a data governance around your GDPR, your PII, your sensitive data, or whatever you would like to run through in one single repository, you can do that. So this is the mindset you should have when you are working with DM or working with Erwin products. Now let's move on to the first topic, that is active model template. I find active model template very powerful. Why? Because it saves a lot of time, and I have seen over the years working with the tool, customers don't want to redo the whole work again. Every time they have to build the model, they will be creating the same tables or columns. How about thinking of creating a master model? Okay, this comes as a best practice rather than reinventing the wheel again and again. You create one place where you have all kinds of domains, domains are the list of your columns, feature columns, which will have data types, your validation rules to it, your definition, your comments to it, right? Your standard tables, columns that, let's say, there are standard columns, insert, if it's a warehouse model, because that's what we were building in my past job, insert date, update, last update date, all those kind of standard columns that you are going to use it again and again, regardless of which table, which model, or which project you are working with, right? You would like to create standard dimensions for the model that you would like to reuse across different projects or across different departments or different marks. So you can kind of, and of course you can build your color, fonts, logos, and all that what comes in behind. But put those in the active model template. And active model template is nothing but it's a standard master model which keeps all these objects in one place in central repository, save it in workgroup library so that any other data modeler starts working with a new project, or they need to update those objects, columns, they can just do a import. So the way active model template works, you have those objects. Then second, it allows the customers, let's move on to the next slide, the way Wizard works. If you start a brand new project and you need to reuse those objects, you just do the bind template. And the bind template will allow you to import the objects or filter it. Let's say in my active model template, I have 100 objects. Out of 100 objects, I only need 25 of those objects that I just said, the columns, tables, and domains, whatnot. You pull that in, all right? And now your new project gets started right from the, without any extra effort or doing reverse engineering or something. Let's say in long run, you have to change, one of the standard table is customer, and customer ID data type is 40 in an active model template, and you need to increase it to 75 or 400, whatever. You go back, change it in an active model template, and say refresh template. But what it will do, the model will automatically get refreshed, and all the objects that you made changes in the active model template shows that changes back in your model. So you don't have to do any kind of manual work. So to reduce, for the automation, for the reduce of manual work, active model template is definitely a go-to for me. Second feature, as I already said, domain, which of course should be part of your active model template. So for those who are new to Erwin, domains are kind of a predefined, pre-built columns in Erwin. So what does that mean? You will build a set of columns with their data types, with their definition, as I said, and you can drag and drop those columns into your tables. You can apply many other things to that, but that's the basic, very first step to do it. So you will go to Erwin domain editor. You can start adding your domains, and then simply by mouse, you can drag and drop those columns and start building those. So as I was saying previously, if it's part of active model template and in long run, you have to make any changes, you just make that changes in your active model template, and those changes will reflect in your current model if they are part of domains. The third feature Erwin or DM user should be using is user-defined properties and validation rules. User-defined properties are predefined. I look at it, I mean, every user has his own way of looking or using user-defined properties, as because it's called user-defined. But I think that in today's scenario, when you are working with data governance, you would like to map who are the data stewards to it, if there is any sensitive data around it, if you have any data governance definitions around it, how can you put those information in model? Because eventually, if the goal is to push this information from Erwin to a data governance tool, no matter whether you have data intelligence tool from Erwin or you have any other third-party tool, user-defined properties can be pushed. Those important information can be pushed into your reports or into the data intelligence suite. And it's very important for data governance team to look at it, what kind of PII information you have, what kind of GDPR information you have, or those things. So the way you create user-defined properties, I guess there are 4 or 5 types. 3 you are looking at it, where you can define text. You can create date. That can be, it's a date format. You can also use comma delimiters, where you can import any files. And I think there is a list type where you can assign different data stewards. It gives you a drop-down list, and you can pick one of your choice options. And there is a reel where you can define your requirement there. So there are different types. It's very useful. You define it at the attribute level. You can define it at column level, table level, model level, entity level, wherever you want. So this drop box will allow you to select where exactly that user-defined property needs to be attached. And then you can run a report. Within Erwin, you can run a report on your UDPs, or you can pass it to data governance team. The other important feature is validation rules. Validation rules basically, in this example, you can see, define all the states, abbreviations, give me all the area codes. Let's say if you have a product code, product quality number, or something like that, a validation rules comes handy, where you can define it as a user-defined, you can define it as a min value, max value. You have different types. You can play along, and you can see for each column, you can define validation rules. Again, you can make the validation rule as a part of active model template. And then you can keep on reusing those expressions, your conditions across the board, and if it's required by different models or different projects. Erwin API is called as Application Programming Language, which basically allows full access to Erwin model and metadata information. So what exactly is that? It is a programming language which basically allows my customers to look into so you are looking at the model, but that model is stored somewhere behind the metadata, another layer in the tool, right? The API allows you to reach those metadata objects and start doing the thinking out of the box. So once you have the access to the design part of the model, you can build your own, once you see the objects and the relationship, you can build your own reports around it. It's COM-based. So a lot of customers, they use it for automation process. They use it as a best practice where automation process, they would like to pick certain objects from the schema on a weekly basis or something like that, pull it in the spreadsheet, and then add and update objects properties. So add and update object properties and delete the existing objects. This is one of the most popular way of using the APIs. Let's say you've been given a spreadsheet full of tables, columns, definitions, domains, maybe pulled from a schema or a new task being come. You don't want to do that manually, adding each object in the model. So you run the API. Our support team has a very nice documentation done for the API, how to use it. But that API basically lets you pull that information from spreadsheet and push it into DM tool itself. Now, the other thing is, now you're looking at your metadata objects behind the model. You can run your own reports. You can understand the relationship, and you can do more than what tool is giving you to do. You can run API against the Mart and then run cross reports if you can think of how those objects are conditioned or connected. So it's a way of analyzing the relationship, between those meta model objects and building a best practice around your architecture team. I have one slide here. This is the one which I was talking about, is one of the most popular one, where the user has a list of entity definitions, entity attribute definition. You can always you can have the domain list, domain definition, whatnot. And this API is basically, as I said, it's COM-based API. You can build on a spreadsheet right now, an Excel sheet. You click on this, update my entity tables, update my columns, definitions, and it will push our next screen where you will pull that model where you want to update those, you want those updates to go. And once it goes there, you open the DM model and you will see all the changes reflect in your model. So it is useful. Maybe you might feel challenging at the first shot, but that's why we have our support team. You can reach out. We have a nice documentation done. My slide also shares how you can use the API in a bookshelf in documentation being provided in Erwin website. So you can take a note of that as well. Okay. The next feature that I feel is very powerful and used by a lot of advanced DM users is macros. There's no limit. You can write macros against table, column, relationships, changing the relationship names, indexes, triggers, stored procedures, you name it, every place you can write the macros. So what these macros are. So as you can see, I mean, this is not a new feature. Again, I'm doing this for customers who are listening to my presentation very first time, and they would like to know how to use the tool in a best potential way. So these macros are Erwin proprietary language. It's been there, I think, since I started the career. These macros are there. They are string-based, and you can define your conditions. It's not a true programming language, but it allows you to put your conditions, your requirement, add your logic to it, and allows you to pick the change of the name or change of the trigger, or see the effect on the prescript or postscript, depending on where you're using it. I'm planning to do a demo at the end for showing you the few of most popular macros that our customers are using, how they are using it, and how the names can be changed, domain macro and index name change macro. And there is a lot more to it. And as I said, we have documentation. I will show you exactly where you to reach those documentation during my demo, and you can start using the macro feature. So that's something to look into, DM macros, if you're taking notes. The next feature, I am a big fan of bulk editor. I have not seen too many customers using bulk editor, but if you're an advanced user or if you're a new user, and if you're not using bulk editor, you're missing a lot. Bulk editor, as by name, it's basically runs a kind of a report, a metadata report about the model that is behind the scene. Okay, it will give you the list of tables, columns, but it's not. Do not treat it as a reporting tool, but just to look at the report and where you need to make changes in the bulk. So because we have reporting tools separately, which is called Report Designer. So don't get confused with this. But you can. It is pretty handy editor where you can, in a situation. Let me give you an example where you're looking at it here, where I ran a report where I'm getting a data warehousing model, and my goal is to pick all the target table names, column names, give me the physical data types, give me the null options. If that column has any data sources associated, give me that. If that column has any transformation comments and any conditions to it, please document that. And of course, the physical name of the target column. So now you will see that some columns, how it is handy, because behind the scene, I have built the warehouse model, but I still need a lot of information which is missing. So goal could be, I have to send this model to my business analyst and get this transformation comments, or send it to ETL users. They can take a look. They can provide their feedback, right? What I can do, I can simply save this model in a CSV file. So there is a trick. You cannot manipulate the CSV file when it's generated through bulk editor. Okay, you can call it a challenge, or you can call it that's the way it works today. You save the CSV file as is, no changes made. You give it to your person who is going to add these values in wherever the values you are required. Okay, and they save it back, save it back as is, and you pull or you import that back in, and you will see that all the data that they provided, it brings in automatically. I mean, it's going to save so much manual time once you know exactly how this bulk editor works. So that is one usage where you are working in data warehousing environment and you are building a source target map model, and you have to provide some kind of information, transformation information to your ETL tool. The second usage is, let's say I have the model and all my char 18 has to change to char 65. I don't want to go in each column and do the manual change, right? That will be nightmare if I have thousands of columns. So I pull those columns, search on char, and it allows you to select just like a spreadsheet. You select all your rows of char 18, make it char 65, and boom, it's done. Same thing if you are changing the names. You are at every place you see this drop down, you can select and make the multiple row changes. You also see on the right hand side of my screen where you see an editor window, which basically allows you to edit those objects. I mean, it's really powerful if you know how to use it. So once you make the commit to this screen on the bulk editor, it's basically saved to the model. You don't have to do anything in the model itself. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's done. You make the changes, make a commit in bulk editor, and model automatically shows those changes. So let's move on to the next feature, is query tool. This is also a very quite underrated feature, not being used by a lot of customers. I don't know the reason, but maybe because it requires little education about understanding the metadata behind the model. Again, see, I'm trying to give you tips today. As you can see, a lot of metadata kind of tips I'm giving you, because it's very easy to build a model, draw, click, point and click. I'm not talking about those features, but I'm talking about more advanced features today, which basically allows you to be more agile with your projects. Okay, so Query Tool is another kind of a reporting tool. So this is one of the reasons we came up with the Query Tool, because I saw, and personally, I felt when I was an end user that report designer it's a cumbersome. It takes a lot of time to build a simple report. If I'm looking for a table name, give me a table name, column name, data type, definitions, and child table name, parent table name. It will take you, just to build that report format will take you 15-20 minutes, because it makes you drill down 15-20 times. You have to exactly know where those objects exist. But once you build it, of course, in design, report designer, you can save the report, and next time you can reuse it. But if you are using it first time, it can be challenging to find the right kind of object just to build a basic table column report with the parent-child information. I'll not deny that. And definitely, I have told my team to look into and build a better reporting tool for future. And that's something we will be looking into, how we can make our tool more innovative and more intuitive in regards to documenting the metadata. But right now, the way today works, as I said, coming back to Query Tool, Query Tool has, we have a lot of documentation. I will try to show you Query Tool as well in my demo, where you connect to the metadata, you select the query. So we do have canned queries. So you do not have to write your own queries. If you're quite new to erwin DM, you can look into those canned queries, like one of the canned queries I'm looking into, and basically it's giving you that this report is basically giving me, give me the subject areas and what tables are part of that subject area. It's a simple report, but if you go back to report designer, it's going to take some time. But in my Query Tool, this is one of the canned report. I just copy pasted and I got the results. So that's something you can save this report, or if you make a modification to this report, you can always save it, and you can save the result into a spreadsheet, and you can share it with your team members. So it works as a reporting tool if you would like to use it, and you can be quite innovative. You can think out of the box. That once you get the understanding of the metadata, once you get the understanding of this objects behind the metadata and the relationship, you will be running far advanced features like macros. You will be running far advanced features like API and query tools, and making it more, as I said, more agile and more productive with your projects. All right, so the next one is MITI Bridges. MITI Bridges is the third-party tool that we use, but personally, I used a lot in my last job where we had a project where it was all relational model, okay? And the challenge was to build a dimensional model going forward. Any new requirement comes in, and at the same time, we are building the new project. Same time, the task was to build the dimensional model out of the relational model. That was the project. The challenge was the relational model was sitting in Oracle, had no relationships, no primary keys, no foreign keys, right? So what exactly we did? So we could have done the reverse engineering the database, get nothing, and start from ground zero. What I suggested, and we did, and we got quite success on that, instead of doing the reverse engineering of system, I reverse engineered the Cognos. So they were using, it's the IBM shop, so they were using Cognos, pull that entire Cognos model through MITI-bridges into erwin DM. What it helped me, they were maintaining all the relationships at the Cognos level, at the BI tool level. So when I imported that metadata or Cognos models, it imported the relationship. That was one part was done. The second thing it helped me, of course, I got the primary keys and relationships. Second thing which was really helping was getting the business terms, the logical names behind that. So the way the BI tool was designed, they had the presentation layer and database layer, right? So database layer reflects your Oracle names, presentation layer reflects your business terms. So we have thousands of users who were running reports based on those presentation layers. And they didn't want to see if I reverse engineer and build a model, they don't want to see those because those names absolutely makes no sense. So importing from BI tool via MITI-bridge helped me in the logical model automatically get those business names, helped me getting the relationships, gave us a big jump start, right? We could see the as-is model, and then the rest of the team started working on dimensional models, getting certain data. So we used it as a main warehouse model, as the main source of all the entire metadata. Going forward, building the dimensional model and making other new projects come in and getting the data in through that. There are many smart ways to use MITI-bridges. That's importing. Now what happens, the export, it works, it's a bidirectional. So in this example, I personally didn't use it for the export, but what you can do is when you export the erwin, let's say in this example, I'm using Power Center, you will see when the model goes into BI tool, you will get to see your tables, your columns, your description to the columns, relationship to the columns, foreign keys, PKs, all comes along. So keep in mind, it's always a bidirectional support via MITI-bridges. Any questions you have, please feel free to reach out about any tips that we are discussing today. So let's move on to the next one. This is ETL documentation and source target mapping. This is kind of close to my heart because this is where we spend a lot of time building, as I just explained, that building the relational model into a dimensional model. And the requirement was from ETL team to get the source target documentation. And I recently did a webinar, a detailed webinar on building this documents. And it kind of surprised me. I did the polling where almost 95% customers, they said they are not using erwin to do the documentation, but they are doing manual work. So that shows, that how much manual efforts we are doing to do the things which tool itself can take care of it. Once we set the system, some automation, some APIs, it's a one-time deal, some macros around it, and make the system keep going. And I'll be honest, we have advanced users who have done it, and they are running their projects very successful. They're using APIs to run the automation and run the process going, because that's the data is coming from some sources. Documentation is needed, and so you have to think out of the box. That's my point. So let's get into ETL documentation and source target mapping. So in DM, so if you're a new user in erwin DM, you can create a logical model, you can create a physical model, and you can also create dimensional model. Okay, what does dimensional model lets you do? It allows you to capture about the table, about the column, whether you can capture the sources. Okay, if it's sources coming from a flat file, it's coming from a SQL database, and you are building Oracle database, you are building a model in Oracle, you can capture those kind of information. You can run your dimension types about the table and column, source changes, source slow changing data types. If said source slow changing data type 2 or 3 or 1, those kind of documentation can be stored within model itself. So if you look at it, this particular example I have, the column is not highlighted, but whatever column you select, the window allows you to go to the source and import that source. So let's say you import that, this is a Oracle model and the source is in SQL model. You can pull that model into DM, save it in workgroup if you want, and then you can do the mapping of that source column, do the transformation comments, you put your conditions around it, whatever condition you document it, okay? So this part is manual, but you are still doing the manual, right? You are putting all those information in spreadsheet. So what my point is, you start documenting everything in the tool. So let's say tomorrow somebody else comes to the day to do the same job, they can see exactly how the information has been collected. Once that transformation comment and source data information is saved, as you can see, the tool is letting you view through those information. It allows you to see the source table name, source column name, source data type, all that detail, okay? You can make the connection of source to target mapping. That's what your STM document is doing. And then you push that information into Report Designer. So in my last webinar 2 weeks back I kind of went in detail how in Report Designer you create a one-time source target mapping document, which will give you the list of your target tables, target columns, data types, source table information, and then you publish it. You publish it in CSV, which you are already doing it, or you build it in bulk editor, we just discussed in bulk editor, pass it to your business team or ETL team, let them take a look on the transformation, right? We had this need. The ETL team will make the changes and they wanted me to bring that changes and save it in the model right away. So we had two choices. Either my team member has to go manually and whatever the transformation changes or ETL team member was making those changes, make those changes in the model manually, as I said, or I gave them the bulk, of course, I gave them the bulk editor option where they will go in the CSV file, make those changes, and I used to import that, and the model will show that those changes reflected back. Everything is stored in one central repository. You're not looking in outside spreadsheet or different spreadsheets. Everything is around. It's all about the data. It's all about the metadata stored in one central repository. You can push that into workgroup. You can run reports out of it. You can see if you would like to see, lineage. If you are mapping those lineage into portal, you can do that as a next step to it. So there are a lot of benefits when you do the documentation in the tool itself. So let's move on to next slide. This is, I have to say, this is one of the most popular feature came in recent release, scheduler. Reverse engineering days when you have to reverse engineer, sit there, wait. The reverse engineer is running. Sometimes it will run overnight or something. Now it's just like any scheduling job. You come in the reverse engineering option. You go to the reverse engineering scheduler option right here. You can see on the screen. Schedule one job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, as many jobs you want from different databases, from the same databases, different schemas. You can do that, and that's it. It runs on its own, and once it's done, you get the process done, and that's it. You have your models ready. You can save it. It will ask you where you would like to save it. You put the location, and that's it. I mean, it's such a powerful and productive feature. It took so long for us to bring in, but it's there. Please start using it. A lot of people are excited. You can apply the same scheduler for a complete compare feature, right? You have reverse engineered and then compare with my model X. at this date, this time. Boom, everything is done for you. You define which model you want to compare with. So not a lot to talk about it. Very simple, straightforward, reverse engineering, scheduler. Let's be productive and start using this feature. Work group administration and collaboration. So as I said, we have a lot of customers who are not using, I don't know why, work group, because it's a platform of a central repository. You have hundreds of tables, you have 50 tables, 20 tables, you have 5 modelers or more, you have 50 modelers or hundreds of modelers. And I have seen, if we have a bigger environment, I don't have to tell them to go on work group. They're already doing it. But even if it's 5 or 10 user group and different teams, different location, start working and putting all information in one central location. Okay, you can set your. This is one of the common questions I've been asked in over the years. What is the best practice to set the work group environment, or what is the best way to keep the performance going? Not going down, or what should we do at our end? So there's not one straight answer to it, but it really depends. In order to set your environment, what exactly your project requirement is, what exactly your business requirement is, how the business users are using it. Is it more like a production environment or product lifecycle environment where everything goes from dev to QA to production? Then you should have to set up libraries accordingly. Do you have naming standards files that you are using naming standards? Put all the naming standard is NSM file library. So basically, workgroup allows you to create those catalogs, those structures based on your requirement, and then you are the best judge how you're going to use it. So you have a central repository for different projects. Central repository, let's say you have information coming from ERP, from different MARTs, from SQL, Oracle, information is coming from Salesforce or something like that. You put them exactly how people would like to access it. Who will be accessing it? Permissions, control, roles, everything is defined right on this workgroup administration level. Okay, so these features have been there for long, nothing new, but again, this is for the customers who are not using DM workgroup, would like to know more about it, talk to us, and we can definitely get on phone with you. We have made few changes, good changes in workgroup. We have added NSM file, central naming standard file management, a central repository. So if you are a current DM user for many years, you have seen that if you are using an NSM file, it's the model level, right? You attach the NSM file at the model, and then you make it changes. So the problem came in, the challenge came in. Every user started trying to make their own changes in NSM, and it's out of loop. Okay, it's out of sync. So we were looking for a way to put the NSM in one place where you can still do the old-fashioned way, but you can also manage NSM in a central location from administration screen, from workgroup administration portal, where you have one location to keep all the track of your naming standard file. And in order to control and not have conflict of users, not to make changes at the standard model level, you don't give them access to make any changes, but all the changes will be allowed right from this central location, which is central NSM file management. Okay, so your administrator person and the person who plays the role of administration should be a data architect or someone who knows which model goes, which NSM file goes to which model, what changes are coming, and he can make changes there. So you can control the manual changes being done for the NSM at the model level. But if the system is already working the way you are working, no problem, you can continue with this, but it's more for a new user. The other new change we got is DM connector for DI, for data intelligence suite, for data literacy side of it. If you are building your data governance, you can bring all your metadata into DM, and then you can push those models from workgroup repository into DI suite, where you will see your business glossary, you will see your metadata, you can run mind map, you can run data lineage, everything in our DI suite. But you don't have to do it manually. You just set your jobs in this administration screen for DI push jobs, and it's quite like an automation job. You set your libraries, your models, and it goes to DI systems. That's how they call it, and you can see all your metadata there. I have next screen talking about more detail on that, so I'm gonna move on to next slide. Oh, by the way, again, this workgroup administration also allows users to create different profiles. I just want to make sure that I'm covering the basics. Profile management, who will be doing the role of data modeler, who will be doing the role of architect, who will be looking into what library or catalog, all that will be done right here in the administration screen. Let's move on to next slide, DM Connect for DI. DM Connect for DI is, as I said, it's a new release, came in R2, DM 2020 R2, where you are, I'm gonna be quick because I have to do the demo. Here, what you are doing, you are reverse engineering all your different sources, SQL, Oracle, all that into DM, okay? And then once you save that, you are pushing that into workgroup library, central repository. And as I just explained to you, we have a DM Connect for DI, which allows you to schedule all the models that you want from your libraries into data intelligence suite. So on the diagram, as you can see, data intelligence suite has different subsets of it. We have metadata manager, we have business glossary manager. There are many ways you can see through you can create your terms about your metadata if you would like to create new terms. Another question comes, if I'm already using NSM, can I push that into DI and you see those business terms? Absolutely, you can do that. You can run a mind map, a lineage if it's a customer ID, where else it's been used in different sources. Those kind of advanced lineage feature is part of DI. You can do the permissions, roles, controls, who will be the business owners looking into what kind of model, all that can be done through DI. But the goal is, if I'm already having the models built in erwin DM and workgroup, is there a way to make this automation? And yes, answer is yes, you can do it. At this point, I would like to do a quick demo for 5 minutes if I have time, and I have to capture the roadmap. So let me pull my Erwin screen. So I would like to show you the macro that I thought it was useful for customers to see it, how they can use macros. Let me create one of the, and this is the list of macros that I found quite useful. You can use it. If you want, you can email me and I will be more than happy to share this macro list of macros, or you can go to support site. But let's see what exactly I'm trying to build. So let's say I start building a model, a brand new model. I have two different screens, so editors are jumping here and there. My apologies. Logical physical model, click OK. And let's drop quickly an entity here, parent. And I am going to create a domain, because this is one of the most popular, and I'm gonna name it as ID, okay? Now, I can drag and drop, as I was explaining you, I can drag and drop and use this as a column here. But you will see, by default, this is the nature of erwin DM, there's a macro used here. And the macro is %att name domain. So what is exactly saying, whatever the attribute name is, domain attribute name is follow the same name pattern. But what you can do, there is you can add percent entity owner. So what you are trying to say that give me the table name as well when you are defining the column name. So what happens here? If I drop it now, I think I messed up with the, let me copy and paste. I don't want to waste too much time here. Okay, yeah, person owner entity. Yeah, I typed it wrong. And now you will see it grabbed the parent name and then ID. So what exactly the changes I made, I went in there, and this is one of the popular one where if you are, and then story starts again from my active model template. You have a bunch of domains, and you want to make sure it, wherever you use this table, a column, let's name it as child, okay? And I would like to use this as, let's draw a relationship, and it shows me that this relationship, that child table, it's coming from table name called parent, and it is ID, right? So now let's say it's in lowercase. What I can do, I can draw. There is another quick way to do it. I mean, there are few things, small things that makes a big difference. I am not typing it. I'm not a good at typing things, so especially when you are doing the webinars. I'm gonna copy paste here. And now see what exactly I did. I said here, I would like to change all the names as uppercase. All right, because it was, as you can see, I typed it in lowercase. So there are many creative ways you can use these macros. There's another one. So this is one of the very popular one that customers use it to define their domains and domain as a columns. Index names. Okay, so if you go in the indexes on the physical side, jumping here, so I can create another index, new unique, and it's XAK parent. So it's a standard XPK, XAK alternate key, primary key index names. I'm gonna jump fast. There's another type of index. I don't think I will have time to explain, but let me see. If I use this index macro, I just want to show you the usage. All the index macros are coming from, I just want to make sure customers who go, they have something to think about or look into. These macros are coming from the model naming options, okay? Key group to index, I'm just going to type that index and I'll go over that later. But macro toolbox is basically allows you to select, give me all the entity for each entity, for each attribute, give me the index names, and then I'm trying to customize and write the functions that the way I want. So that's, you can go in there. Now, if I go back and look at the index names after typing, you will see my index name changed. But the way it changed is XX for PK and KX, K1 as parents. So, I mean, it may not make sense, but let me go through here and this window and I try to explain you. What exactly I'm saying is the key type. Key type is basically nothing. If you look at the logical side of it, and key group, each key group has a type. This is the type that the macro is trying to read, okay? So each key group, where it's first string or second, if it's a PK, if it's the index is PK, add a custom name XX to it, okay? So that's where you saw that XX is coming from. And not here in the physical side, index XX. The next one is, let's go and choose a K substring, and you can have AK1, AK2, AK3, you can categorize it, you concatenate it the way you want the second letter or second string on it, or wherever you want change. And that's where you see I said make a XK substring third, or so on and so forth. So logic is there. You have to just pay a little attention, and you can customize your names. You can customize your names with the table name. You have a standard prefix to it. Anything you want, you can add to this indexes. I think we are very close. I won't have time to do any other demo today, but let me go back to my presentation. I would like to cover the roadmap is the key factor. Being in the position of project management, I can share with you guys what's coming in future. So the first thing is coming is we are releasing in near future in October and November Service Pack 1 and Service Pack 2. These will have, this is the good news, these will have SQL Server support, Advanced for support, SQL Server Azure support, and SQL Server Synapse support. So wait for Service Pack 1 and Service Pack 2, and you will see those features. The next thing is we are releasing DM21R1 in first quarter of next year, and we would like to tell you very excited that DMR1 is really you will be very excited to see, let's put this way. It has a lot of new changes have made. The best news is NoSQL, which was a SaaS feature till now, is part of the DM. So you will see your NoSQL databases. I'm not going to disclose the names yet. We have changed the UI. You will see we are enhancing the support for Oracle's database 12c, 18c, and 19c. That was the major request from the customers. So I just want to tell you we are listening to you. We are also changing the UI for March. And the good news is we are also supporting data vaults at 2.0 modeling. So a lot of new things are happening. A lot of work is happening in my development team. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Here is my information. If you have, as I said at the very beginning, I would like to meet each of you who is listening virtually. Today we all work virtually. Via community, go and use the community website. Put your request, enhancement request, ideas, design, and I promise you I go once a week on those sites and I make sure that I'm going through all the requests you guys are putting in. Regards to DMR1, we are also running the beta. So beta will start in November, December timeframe. If you would like to see the R1, how it is working, what kind of NoSQL is looking, testing, if you have the environment and you will help us out for the beta testing, reach out to me. I'll be your person to give you the hands-on to the beta testing. With that, Kathy, I think I'm ready for Q&A. I apologize, I went over time.
Yeah, we will skip Q&A and you have some homework ahead for you. So we'll provide you the list of questions that were received during this presentation. If you could go to the next slide, Bonnie, and then we will provide them to you, and you can get directly in touch, because as a super user, I'm sure you've have awakened and had many aha moments with the users unaware of a lot of these features. So just to promote what's coming up ahead, this concludes day one. Tomorrow morning, we start off with our keynote. So we hope everyone will be on the platform at 9 a.m. But then at 10 a.m., we have Erwin and Microsoft, the power of the common data model. It's a fantastic session followed by data modeling in an agile world with Jeff Harris, a noted author as well. So great stuff coming up. Continue to utilize the networking lounge and exhibition hall. Visit our key Erwin personnel in the environment all over the place and ready and willing to give you a test drive. And lastly, we ask that you visit the IT Central Station booth, which is, voice of customer reviews. So either check out a review on a technology from Erwin that you might not currently have in-house, or consider giving a review of your own. But at this time, Bonnie, I'd like to thank you very much. And this concludes the session. Thank you so much.